A large winter storm is developing right now, and it just changed in a major way. A bunch of snow and extreme cold is set to impact the United States this weekend, with some areas expected to be hit harder than others. It all begins today as a dangerous Arctic blast is gearing up to bring extreme cold to much of the United States. This blast of cold air will shatter temperature records in nearly a dozen states, but the main story is a major winter storm that is developing now, and it could bring some intense snowfall to some areas. This winter storm is beginning to form off the coast of Florida and will move up the east coast tonight and tomorrow, posing a risk of significant snowfall. This winter storm will be dangerous for some areas, as it's expected to become a bomb cyclone. This means snowfall rates and winds will rapidly increase late tomorrow night and into early Sunday. If the winter storm takes the right track, it could dump over a foot of snow in much of the Carolinas. However, some model guidance indicates that might not be the case. Additionally, rare snow is possible in Florida tomorrow. Now we have a lot to talk about in today's forecast, and we have had some big changes to the forecast with this upcoming winter storm. And some of the changes might be good for some of you. Some are bad. So, let's talk more about it. This is what it looks like as we go into tonight. We will begin to see snow showers increasing in coverage across the Appalachian Mountains. We've actually had some pretty decent snow moving through Nashville this afternoon as well. We've had some flurries and even a coating in some locations. But over here is really going to be the big story. We have an offshore low-pressure system that is going to rapidly intensify overnight tonight into tomorrow. And that's eventually going to bring some heavier bands of snow closer to the Carolina coastline. Notice this is pictured around midnight tonight. So overall, we're not expecting any sort of major winter storm to really be happening tonight. But as we go into the overnight hours, it's going to start to really get organized. So by tomorrow morning, we will have a large area of snowfall, and we could even have snow as far west as Louisiana, Alabama. There will be a possibility of some snow flurries and maybe some light snow that could lead to a dusting of snow on elevated surfaces. But generally speaking, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But the real story is going to be this right here. Back over in the mid-Atlantic and the Carolinas, we'll have snow beginning to ramp up. That is because we'll have very cold air coming out of the north, moisture circling around Florida and coming out of the south. And this is going to begin to develop a pretty intense low-pressure system. Now, while this is happening, I do want to point out that with our very cold air coming out of the north, we'll have northerly winds. That means intense lake effect snow is expected tonight into tomorrow if you are in northwest Indiana or very far northeastern Illinois near Chicago. Some areas are under winter storm warnings right now. This is an area that we could pick up around 6 to 12 inches of snowfall tonight. Maybe a little bit of lake effect snow also just to the north of Detroit. But again, the big story is going to be right here in the Carolinas, where snowfall is really going to intensify Saturday morning. Now, one of the biggest tricky parts really with this forecast is the dry slotting. There is going to be a risk that we could have some dry slots that develop back over in the Carolinas. And if that happens, snowfall accumulation for some of you could be dramatically lower. So, I would not be getting too emotionally attached to all the snowfall forecasts that are out there. It is a very tricky forecast here for the Carolinas and Virginia because 1, this storm system is developing late tonight into tomorrow. It hasn't even formed yet. The other thing is that this is going to be a rapidly intensifying bomb cyclone, which means that the track of this storm could go a little bit further west or east than what we're currently forecasting. So that could really significantly alter our snowfall accumulation tomorrow. But I do still think the expectation is that there will be a widespread area of snowfall, especially across central and western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, and back as far west as Atlanta, Georgia. Our most intense snowfall is still expected to be near Cape Hatteras, right on the north side of our low-pressure system. That is where blizzard conditions are likely. And then, during the afternoon and evening on Saturday, snow should be widespread, including Raleigh, Charlotte, back into Greenville, South Carolina, Charleston, and Myrtle Beach. A small little sliver of freezing rain can't be ruled out near the I-95 corridor, mainly from Charleston back up towards Myrtle Beach, and maybe in the very extreme southern parts of North Carolina. During the evening hours, the snow continues to stay widespread here across the Carolinas, southeastern Virginia like Virginia Beach. And we may get a little bit of snowfall back over in the Maryland area as we go into Saturday night. And then overnight Saturday into Sunday morning, we will have a little bit more snow still continuing in South Carolina and North Carolina. But most of the snow will be done a little bit after sunrise on Sunday. And then the tricky part of this forecast is if this storm goes more out to the east, as this model is showing, then we probably will not see a whole lot of snow back over in New England. But with that said, this is a very tricky forecast, and if you look at any computer model right now, they're all showing something different because this is a very tricky storm to forecast. This is the HRRR, which tends to be a lot more accurate with winter weather activity. And notice that it has this very large dry slot all across central and eastern North Carolina, and even eastern South Carolina during the daytime on Saturday, with a lot more snowfall near the Appalachian Mountains and also near Cape Hatteras. If this scenario were to pan out, we'd be talking about a very low-end snow event near areas like Raleigh, and more significant snowfall mainly over near the coastline. So again, there are several scenarios at play. This one also shows snowfall Sunday in Cape Cod and Nantucket, and we could see around 6 inches of snow up there. But again, it's a very tricky forecast, and I'm going to break down the snowfall accumulation in just a second. What I think will happen is that I do expect that there will be some dry slotting tomorrow. With that said, I do not think it's going to be as bad as what the HRRR model is showing. I think we're going to see something more like this, where yes, we'll have some dry slots here and there, especially during the morning, but snow should fill in a lot more during the afternoon, leading to a more widespread snow event across the Carolinas. So again, very tricky forecast here, but I do think the worst of the snowfall is going to be during the daytime on Saturday, primarily after lunchtime. And we'll talk more about snowfall accumulation in just a moment. But I do want to point out that tomorrow night, there could be some rare snowfall in central and western Florida. If you're near Tampa or Orlando, keep an eye to the sky. We could have some Gulf effect snow develop late tomorrow night and into the overnight hours. This could lead to upwards of a coating of snow back over near Tampa. And Tampa has not seen any accumulating snowfall in over 40 years. So, there could be a very rare event happening over in Florida tomorrow night. Definitely keep an eye on the sky in Florida. All right, let's talk more about the snowfall accumulation that will come out of this winter storm. And I'm going to show you 3 different models because, again, every model is showing something different. So, I don't want to get your hopes up right now for a ton of snow everywhere. I think we're going to have some locations that are definitely going to see significant snowfall, and some that have a chance of having basically a bust when it comes to snowfall. So, this is what the HRRR model shows, which again shows a much more significant dry slot in Virginia and North Carolina. And notice that it has a very large amount of snow right along the coastal region. So that's Cape Hatteras, back down towards Myrtle Beach, showing a very significant winter storm and some of the most snow that we've really seen in years for areas like Myrtle Beach, upwards of 6 to 12 inches in basically this entire corridor. Back over into the Carolinas, and back into eastern Tennessee and the Appalachian Mountains, also showing a widespread 6 to 12 inches, and then back over near Atlanta and Savannah, Georgia, around a coating to 2 inches of snow is going to be on the table. It also shows a very low amount of snowfall back over to the west of Orlando, where we could have a coating tomorrow night. This is zoomed-in view, so again, notice this is right around where Raleigh's located, and it doesn't even show really anything happening there tomorrow. Again, I don't think this is going to be the scenario that pans out, but it's just a possibility. It's just going to depend on our dry slotting tomorrow. This is a more realistic scenario in my opinion. I think we're going to be talking about a widespread 4 to 8 inches of snow all across North and South Carolina. I think that's a given at this point. I think that there could be again some areas that get dry slotting and maybe are closer to 1 to maybe 3 inches of snow. There could be some areas that overperform and get closer to a foot of snow. It really could go either way. This storm is again very tricky to forecast because it is not yet formed. But I think this is going to be a very realistic expectation of what to expect tomorrow. Atlanta, at least 2 inches is going to be on the table, especially further to the east. And back down towards Savannah, I think we'll be right around a coating. And then near Tampa, Florida, there could be around a coating of snow as well. Back over in southeastern New England, near the Cape Cod and Nantucket areas, I think right around 6 to 7 inches of snow is likely. Now this here is the National Weather Service's forecast, which shows a widespread 8 to 12 inches of snow in eastern North Carolina, back up towards Virginia Beach, into the northern side of Cape Hatteras, and then all across upstate South Carolina. And then further off to the north towards Maryland, New Jersey, we're only talking maybe a coating to an inch or two. And then over in southeastern New England, maybe 6 to 8 inches of snow in Cape Cod and Nantucket, with very limited snowfall near Savannah. And then Atlanta, right around 1 to 3 inches. I think this is also a very realistic forecast. This doesn't really account, though, for the dry slotting, and I do think dry slotting is going to be a problem tomorrow. I think we'll have at least some dry slotting trying to set up right in this corridor here, which could lower some of our snowfall accumulation near the Raleigh area. If dry slotting does not set up whatsoever, that means that we'll probably end up being much closer to these numbers. There's always a possibility, too, with how cold it is going to be outside. Our snow is going to be very fluffy, so it's going to stack up quickly. There could be a possibility that some of these areas could also overperform. So again, I think the last graphic I showed you here is the most realistic scenario for now, in terms of snowfall accumulation across the Carolinas and back through the Northeast. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of nowcasting. We are going to be live almost all day tomorrow covering this winter storm. So make sure that you're following along because we will have in-depth detail on what's happening on the radar at that given moment and a much better idea of how much snowfall to expect. And another problem with this winter storm will be how windy it is both tomorrow and Sunday. If you're inland across the Carolinas and Virginia, we are expecting wind gusts to be around 20 to 40 miles per hour, which means blowing snow and snowdrifts are going to be very common over in the Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi corridor. It's not really going to be snowing a whole lot in these areas, but the winds will be very strong coming out of the north. Wind chills will be in the 20s and teens in some locations tomorrow afternoon and evening. And then by the time we go into Saturday night and Sunday morning, we will have very intense winds all across inland areas in the Carolinas and Virginia. Wind gusts exceeding 40 miles per hour, especially near the Virginia Beach corridor. And then really anywhere right along the immediate coastline, we are expecting widespread wind gusts between 40 to 60 miles per hour, with some localized areas as high as 70 to 80 miles per hour for wind gusts. So it's going to be very dangerous in those locations. Blizzard warnings should be issued at any time for those areas, as well as it will be very windy. And as we've been talking about all week, one of the most significant Arctic blasts of this winter so far is about to slam the United States. This is mainly going to be the most impactful across the Southeast and the Mid-Atlantic, as temperatures will be dropping by as much as 40 to 50 degrees over just the next 24 to 36 hours. So, it's going to get very cold this weekend. It's not going to stick around forever, because during the middle of next week, temperatures will get right back closer to average. But we are likely going to see another strong cold front along the East Coast by the middle and end of next week, which means winter is really not going to be going anywhere. This is the difference from average across the entire East Coast this weekend. Most areas will be as much as 20 to 40 degrees below average. We are expecting a few dozen temperature records to be broken. Most of Florida will be dealing with record-breaking cold on Sunday, at least for daily temperatures. So, it'll be very cold here to begin February. And these are the low temperatures for tomorrow morning. We are talking about temperatures as low as 20 degrees below zero in Pittsburgh and State College, Pennsylvania. Single digits across the Midwest and even back down towards Little Rock. It'll only be 15 degrees tomorrow morning. Sunday morning will be a lot worse if you're over in the Ohio Valley. A lot of areas in the single digits. And then falling iguana warning if you're back over in Florida. Falling iguanas will be happening all day tomorrow. Anywhere from Jacksonville back even as far south as Miami. And then Monday morning will remain very cold along the East Coast. Temperatures are expected to be still in the single digits and below zero from South Carolina back into New England. And I do want to remind everybody that we still have over 200,000 customers without power, over 5 days after the crippling ice storm happened in Mississippi, Tennessee, and Louisiana. So if you know any friends or family in these areas, please make sure you check in on them and make sure that they are okay right now. This is an area that was very hard hit by that winter storm, and we did warn everybody that we could see power outages last upwards of a week, and even in some of the hardest hit areas over a week. I know people that live in the Nashville area, back over in Oxford, Mississippi, that are dealing with these problems right now, that just do not have power at their own homes, and there's no heat. So, make sure you are checking on these people. Conditions are going to get worse this weekend, with temperatures once again dropping into the single digits and teens for many of these locations. This winter storm represents a significant shift in what we were expecting just 24 hours ago. And the impacts are going to be widespread across the eastern United States. The combination of heavy snow, dangerous winds, and record-breaking cold makes this a particularly hazardous weather situation. Stay prepared and stay safe as this system develops over the next 48 hours.